They came in silence. No grand invasion fleets blotting out the sun, no thunder of war drums, just a whisper from the edge of the solar system. A soft hum that wasn't natural. For a moment, humanity thought it was a miracle. A signal, proof we were not alone. We listened, we decoded, we dreamed, until the whisper turned into a warning. Surrender your home, your resources, your world. You have 7 days. The message was calm, too calm. The voice was metallic, distant, almost curious, as though it didn't expect an answer. The governments of Earth froze. The United Space Command scrambled every satellite, every defense ship, every drone. But deep down everyone knew this wasn't a bluff. The signal came from something immense, a structure so large it warped gravity itself. It wasn't a fleet. It was a single ship. They called it the Seraphis. And in that silence before the stars began to burn, humanity did what it always did best. Argue, panic, hope, and then adapt. In a quiet base beneath the Andes Mountains, Commander Elias Reed watched the stars flicker on a holographic display. His face was calm, but his eyes, dark, sharp, carried the weight of the entire planet. "Status?" he asked. "Same, sir," replied Lieutenant Mara Lynn, her voice tight. "The alien signal repeats every 3 hours. We still can't trace their language structure. It's too deliberate, like they want us to know we can't keep up." Reed exhaled slowly. "Arrogance. Every invader starts with it." Mara looked at him surprised. "You think they're bluffing?" Reed's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "No, I think they believe they don't need to bluff." The room fell silent again. Around them, scientists murmured, screens glowed, and the hum of machines echoed like distant thunder. Humanity's best minds, soldiers, linguists, engineers, gathered here, trying to find a way to answer a threat that was far beyond anything they'd faced. And yet, Reed felt something stirring. Something ancient. The same spark that had driven humans to cross oceans, climb mountains, and reach for the stars. The first visual contact came at dawn. The Seraphis appeared above the moon, a leviathan of black metal, pulsing with light that bent reality. No engines, no weapons visible. It simply was hovering with the arrogance of something that had done this 1,000 times before. When the world saw it, the fear was immediate. Social networks flooded with prayers, protests, desperate videos. Some begged for mercy. Others demanded war. Elias Reed stood before the Global Council later that night, his voice steady. "They told us to surrender," he said. "They expect us to kneel. I say we stand." A murmur rippled through the council chamber. Someone scoffed. "Stand against that? Commander, we don't even know what weapons they use." Reed's gaze hardened. "We don't need to know. What we need is what we've always had, our will. They underestimate it. They always do." His words echoed, quiet but fierce. Because if there was one thing humans had mastered, it wasn't peace. It wasn't technology. It was survival. Far above, on the alien vessel, a being of silver and light watched the blue planet with what might have been amusement. "They resist," it murmured to another. Its voice was like wind through broken glass. "Predictable," the other replied. "Primitive minds often confuse stubbornness for strength." The first tilted its head. "Perhaps. But look closer. Their energy fields shift. Their networks awaken. Even in fear, they move together. Why does it matter? One strike and they burn." The silver being smiled, or something close to it. "Because every species that ever said one strike and they burn learned too late that humans don't burn quietly." Back on Earth, Reed looked up at the stars, his reflection caught in the window. Behind him, Mara spoke softly. "What if we can't win?" He didn't answer right away. The air was still. Then he said, "Then we'll make them remember us." The words hung heavy, but there was strength in them, the kind of strength born not from hope but from defiance. Because for humanity, surrender was never in our nature. The countdown had begun. And somewhere in the endless dark, the universe leaned closer, curious. It had seen countless worlds fall before superior powers, but this was Earth, and humanity had just whispered back, "You thought you could threaten us." Cute. The 7th day began with thunder, not from the skies, but from the ground, from the roar of engines, drills, and the sound of an entire species preparing to defy extinction. In every city and every nation, the same unspoken rhythm pulsed. Humanity wasn't giving up. Factories that had once made cars now forged armor plating. Shipyards turned into launch bays. Satellites became eyes of war. Across the globe, one word spread like wildfire: stand. Commander Elias Reed stood at the heart of the Andes Command Center, surrounded by screens filled with tactical data. The alien vessel, Seraphis, remained motionless, hanging over the moon like a patient god. No sign of weapons, no sign of movement, only silence. Lieutenant Mara Lynn entered holding a data tablet. Her voice was quiet but intense. "We've mapped their energy output. It's impossible. Their reactor runs beyond quantum scale. If they fire on us, even our shields won't hold for a second." Reed nodded. "Then we make sure they never get the chance," Mara frowned. "You mean to attack them first?" He looked up. "To show them what we are, not prey. Not property, people." For a moment Mara hesitated, then nodded. She understood. Humanity wasn't fighting to win. Humanity was fighting to matter. All around the world, old rivalries fell quiet. Borders meant little now. Soldiers from once enemy nations stood side by side. The United African Coalition sent orbital drones. The Pacific Alliance launched deep space interceptors. The lunar colonies transmitted the last of their power reserves to Earth's defense grid. It was imperfect, chaotic, desperate, and utterly human. No perfect coordination, no flawless precision. Just stubborn, creative brilliance, the kind that built from scraps and hope and pure refusal to die. On the Seraphis, the alien commander observed the activity with mild curiosity. Its crystalline eyes blinked in patterns that shimmered like light through water. "Primitive life forms preparing to resist," it said, voice resonating across the chamber. "It is unnecessary. The harvest can be clean." Another alien, smaller, more cautious, shifted uneasily. "And yet, they coordinate with speed. They adapt with no central mind." The commander turned its gaze toward the blue world. "Chaos disguised as courage. Or courage disguised as chaos," the smaller one murmured. The commander paused. An interesting distinction. For a long moment, the alien ship watched Earth flicker with millions of human lights. Cities glowing brighter, like fireflies before a storm. Back on Earth, Mara stood on the launch deck beside the newest human vessel, the Resolute. It wasn't large and it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Human engineers had built it from a fusion of everything they had: Russian thrusters, Japanese reactors, Indian shielding, Brazilian alloys, and the reckless ingenuity of hundreds of scientists working without sleep. It wasn't meant to match alien power, only to remind them that humans fight back. Reed approached, his uniform streaked with grease and soot. "It's not pretty," he said. Mara smiled faintly. "Neither are we." They both laughed, a small human sound amidst the tension. Reed's voice softened. "When I was a boy, my father used to say, 'The stars belong to those who dare look up.' Guess we're looking a little higher tonight." "Then let's make it count," Mara said. As the Resolute rose into the sky, 1,000 voices across the planet whispered prayers, curses, and promises. Every eye turned upward as the first human strike force left Earth. It wasn't an army. It was a declaration. Inside the ship, Mara looked at Reed. "Do you think they're afraid?" Reed watched the stars growing brighter. "They should be." Hours later, the Resolute came within visual range of the Seraphis. The alien ship filled the view, endless black metal and shimmering veins of energy. It made Earth's vessel look like an insect before a storm. Then, without warning, a voice filled their comms. "Humans of soul, you are small. You are temporary. You do not understand the magnitude of your defiance." Reed stood tall, his face calm. "Maybe not," he said. "But you're about to understand ours." He nodded to Mara, and for the first time in human history, Earth fired upon the unknown. A beam of concentrated plasma streaked through space, a burning line of blue fire, and struck the Seraphis. The explosion was brilliant, but brief. The alien hull rippled, absorbing the energy like light through glass. The response came instantly, a shock wave of energy that struck the Resolute like a hammer. Sirens screamed. The hull groaned. Mara was thrown to the deck, shields failing. Reed pulled himself up, bleeding from his temple. "Stay with me. Redirect power to the core." "We can't do it." The ship trembled, holding together by sheer will, And then, for just a heartbeat, the alien vessel dimmed. Reed stared. "Did we?" Mara gasped. "We hurt them," Reed's voice was low. "Then we can hurt them again." On the Seraphis, the alien commander's crystalline skin flickered with static. "Impossible," it whispered. "They pierced the containment field." The smaller one tilted its head. "Perhaps chaos is not as weak as you thought." The commander stared at Earth, its tone shifting. Not amused, not curious. Now it sounded almost alert, far below as the night sky rippled with light. Every human heart beat with the same unspoken truth. They had drawn blood. For the first time, the stars had noticed us, and for the first time, the stars looked afraid. Silence returned to space, but it was not the same silence. It carried weight now, a pulse, a heartbeat. Humanity had touched the untouchable. For the first time in their recorded history, the species aboard the Seraphis had been hurt, and across the stars, deep in that infinite cold, something ancient and proud paused, and listened. Back on Earth, the victory, if it could be called that, burned through the networks like wildfire. We hit them. They're not invincible. We made them bleed. The planet erupted in a wave of unity that no government, no war, no leader had ever achieved. Children painted stars on their windows. Scientists who hadn't slept in days cried in disbelief. Soldiers stood a little taller, but behind every cheer, every flash of hope, there lingered a question whispered in quiet corners. What will they do now? Commander Elias Reed lay on a medical cot, his arm bandaged, his body still aching from the blast. The hum of the medical bay filled the silence. Lieutenant Mara Lynn sat beside him, staring at the ceiling. "They're not going to take that kindly," she said softly. Reed smirked despite the pain. "Good, maybe they'll finally take us seriously." She looked at him. "You really believe we can win this?" He didn't answer right away. He watched the soft flicker of the monitors beside him. Then he said, "We don't need to win, Mara. We just need to prove we won't disappear quietly." She nodded slowly, her jaw set. "Then let's make them remember who we are." In the upper atmosphere, the wreckage of the Resolute drifted like ash. Fragments of metal glimmered in the sunlight, falling slowly toward the blue marble below. But one signal still blinked. A data capsule. Spinning through the void, inside it, readings, scans, and something extraordinary. The energy from the Seraphis wasn't infinite. It was alive. A biological fusion of machine and mind. A living technology. Mara's voice crackled over the comm line as she decoded the data. "They don't run on fuel. They run on thought. Collective neural energy. That means..." Reed finished the thought. "That means we can break it." Thousands of kilometers away, within the shimmering halls of the Seraphis, the alien commander stood before a great sphere of light. The structure pulsed like a living heart, veins of brilliance flowing through the walls. "You felt it too," it whispered. The sphere's light dimmed, then flared again. Its voice was like thunder underwater. "They touched the core." "Yes. Their primitive weapons should not have been capable of. They adapt faster than expected. The human mind is inefficient yet unpredictable." The commander hesitated. "Shall I proceed with eradication?" A long silence followed, then, "Not yet. Observe them. There is curiosity in their defiance." The commander bowed slightly. "Curiosity? They are fragile, yet they resist annihilation. They have no order, yet they move as one. This anomaly requires understanding before destruction." And for the first time in its existence, the alien commander felt something it had no word for: unease. Back on Earth, Reed returned to the command deck. His wounds were healing, but the fire in his eyes burned brighter than ever. He stood before the council again, this time with no hesitation. "They think we're chaos," he began, "but that's because they don't understand what binds us." He gestured toward the giant screen behind him, showing thousands of volunteers, men, women, children, building, coding, repairing. "This," he said, voice rising, "isn't chaos. It's humanity. It's a billion hearts beating out of rhythm, but somehow in harmony." He paused. "They think they can predict us. Let's show them what unpredictability feels like." The room erupted with applause. For once, fear wasn't the loudest thing in the air. In the dark void between Earth and the moon, new signals emerged. Human ships, smaller, faster, built from scavenged parts of old orbital stations. They called them stingers, each carrying a single warhead strong enough to rattle the alien shields. Not fleets. Swarms. Not perfect. Relentless. Mara commanded the first squadron herself. As she sat in the cockpit, the stars reflected in her visor, she whispered, "Let's remind them what they woke." The stingers moved like sparks through the dark, invisible to the alien sensors. The Seraphis loomed ahead, vast and silent, unaware of the storm approaching. When the first missile struck, the sound didn't travel, but the light did. It rippled across the alien hull in waves of violet flame. On board, alarms howled. The commander turned sharply. "What?" Then the second wave hit. Then the third. Tiny human ships, each no larger than a transport shuttle, danced like gnats against a god. And yet, for every one that fell, another took its place. The commander watched in disbelief as the alien shields flickered again. "How?" The smaller alien spoke softly. "You called them primitive, but they are persistent. On Earth, people watched from the ground as streaks of light burned across the night sky. Not meteors, not destruction, but defiance. Mothers held their children close. Old soldiers saluted the heavens. Entire cities paused to watch humanity fight for the right to exist. In that moment, fear turned into faith. Faith not in gods, not in miracles, but in each other. Deep in the command center, Mara's voice crackled through the static. "Commander, we breached their outer hull." Reed closed his eyes, the ghost of a smile forming. "Good," he whispered. "Now let's show them what chaos can do when it has a cause." And far above, the alien commander watched the impossible unfold. And for the first time in eons, it understood the danger not of human weapons but of the human heart. The fourth day of war dawned without sunlight. The skies above Earth glowed faintly red from the debris burning on re-entry. Fragments of alien drones, shattered human ships, and glimmers of metal that used to be stars. Yet the planet still breathed. Still fought. From orbit, the world looked scarred but alive. Defiance carved into the face of a blue world that refused to bow. Commander Elias Reed stood before the tactical display. The lines of red and blue lights representing losses and victories flickered like candle flames. Around him, the command deck buzzed with tension and fatigue. Mara Lynn's voice broke the silence. "We've confirmed the breach. Section 12 of the alien hull is open, but there's radiation flooding the area. Nothing human can survive more than 2 minutes inside." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll send something that doesn't have to be human." Mara turned. "The automatons," he nodded. "They were built for deep space mining. Let's give them a new purpose." She hesitated. "You think they'll even scratch that thing from the inside?" Reed gave a tired smile. "They don't need to win. They just need to make the giant flinch." Far above, the Seraphis pulsed with light. Inside its immense corridors, the alien commander moved through a sea of glowing symbols. Streams of energy that carried thought, communication, and command. "Their attacks persist," one voice echoed. "Loss is minimal, yet efficiency decreasing. The human swarm is illogical, wasteful." The commander silenced them with a wave of its crystalline hand. "Wasteful," it murmured, "and yet effective." It approached the observation window where Earth shone below like a stubborn ember that refused to die. "Why?" it whispered. "Do they fight like this? No order, no unity, only resistance." Behind it, the smaller alien, the one who had doubted before, spoke carefully. "Perhaps unity isn't their strength. Perhaps their chaos is." The commander turned sharply. "Chaos cannot build empires." The smaller alien met its gaze. "No, but it can destroy them." The human automatons, old mining machines retrofitted with explosives and code rewritten by desperate engineers, were launched into the breach. They were clumsy, ungraceful and loud, but they were brave. Each carried the words for Earth painted across its metal chest in dozens of languages. As they entered the alien ship, static filled the human channels. Then, one by one, their signals went dark. For a moment, humanity thought the attack had failed. Then, deep in space, the Seraphis shuddered. On board the alien vessel, chaos erupted. Energy flared across the corridors. Organic circuits screamed as human explosives tore through the biometal flesh of the ship. The commander stumbled, gripping the wall. "Contain it. It's spreading," another voice cried. "Their machines replicate through our network." Impossible. The humans had no technology capable of linking with alien code. And yet there it was. A cascade of interference, chaotic and uncontrolled. The commander realized the horrifying truth. The human machines weren't hacking the alien systems. They were confusing them. Where alien order demanded perfect logic, human chaos injected randomness, noise, errors, thoughts that didn't belong. And the ship, alive, thinking, didn't know how to handle it. In the Andes command center, Reed stared at the readings. "It's working," Mara blinked. "You mean?" "They don't understand randomness. We're feeding them the one thing their perfection can't process, our mistakes." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Reed's voice came, low and fierce. "Send everything we have. Every drone, every code, every imperfect, broken thing we've ever built. Let them choke on it." Across the globe, the networks lit up. Engineers transmitted corrupted data. Artists uploaded chaotic sound waves. Musicians poured entire symphonies of static into the uplinks. Every imperfect human creation, every failure, every flaw was fed into the storm, and the alien mind, vast and immaculate, began to tremble. Inside the Seraphis, the commander's voice turned sharp, desperate. "Purge the system. Purge it now!" The smaller alien struggled against the blinding light. "We can't. Their interference is beautiful." The commander froze. "Beautiful?" The smaller alien lifted its eyes, watching the streams of corrupted light dance like auroras. "It has no order, no symmetry, but it moves. It lives," the commander hissed. "It infects." But deep within the ship's core, the great consciousness stirred, whispering through the corridors in 1,000 broken tones. "They dream. While awake, they create. From ruin. They are, unlike any we have known." And for the first time since its creation, the Seraphis hesitated. On Earth, the world watched the sky. The alien ship flickered, its once perfect glow faltering. Children pointed upward. Old men wept. Soldiers cheered until their voices broke. Mara gripped Reed's shoulder, whispering, "We did it." Reed didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the display. "Not yet," he said quietly. "They're still watching. Still thinking." "Then what now?" Reed exhaled, eyes hard. "Now we show them why you never threaten a species that's had to fight for everything it's ever had." Far above, in the flickering core of the alien vessel, the commander heard a sound. Faint. Impossible. A transmission coming from the human world. It wasn't a weapon. It was a voice, Mara's voice. "You thought you could threaten us?" Cute. And with that, the humans sent another wave. Not of weapons, not of missiles, but of music. Symphonies, laughter, cries. The echoes of cities, of oceans, of heartbeats, the pure, raw chaos of life. The Seraphis convulsed under it. Not from damage, but from something deeper. From the first alien experience of emotion. And in that trembling silence, as light and shadow danced across the stars, the giants began to understand fear. The world burned. Yet it did not break. From the ashes of shattered cities, humanity rebuilt not with steel alone, but with hope, with stubbornness, with a fire that refused to die. Commander Elias Reed stood on the balcony of the Andes Command Center, watching the horizon glow with the remnants of conflict. Smoke twisted in the sky like black ribbons, and yet the stars shone brighter than ever above. Mara Lynn joined him, her uniform streaked with soot and sweat. "They've slowed," she said, pointing to the projections on the holographic display. "Their systems, they're adapting to our attacks, but they hesitate." "That's new." Reed's eyes hardened. "Not new. Human hearts aren't predictable. They don't adapt to fear. They create courage." She frowned, uncertain. "Do you really think that's enough?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at Earth, at the millions of lives below, and then back at the stars. "It has to be." Across the void, the alien vessel Seraphis groaned. Its once perfect corridors quivered under the bombardment of human ingenuity. A storm not of technology, but of life itself. The commander, crystalline and vast, paced before the sphere of the ship's consciousness. "They are not supposed to survive this long." "They should not have inflicted so much damage," whispered the smaller alien. "Yet they endure. They adapt. Chaos, interrupted the commander, voice sharp and metallic. They survive because of it. Because of their unpredictability. The smaller alien tilted its head, observing the streams of corrupted data, random explosions, and human transmissions. It is as if they live inside the storm they create, and yet they are unharmed. The commander's voice was low, almost a hiss. And their defiance grows stronger with each failure. Why do they not break? The smaller alien's gaze softened. Because they fight for something we cannot grasp. A world, a family, a hope. Not for conquest. Not for order. The commander's hands trembled. For the first time, it felt the weight of uncertainty. The terrifying weight of a species that refused to yield. Back on Earth, Reed convened a council of scientists, pilots, and engineers. They were exhausted, bruised, and sleep-deprived. Yet their eyes burned with the same stubborn light that had carried humanity from fire to stars. We've weakened them, Reed said, gesturing to the projection of Seraphis. Not destroyed, but weakened. And now we strike at their mind, not just their body. Mara frowned. Their consciousness, that's dangerous. Everything about them is dangerous, Reed replied. But nothing they have can withstand what we do best. Heart. He paused, scanning the room. We're going to do something no one has done before. We're going to make them feel humanity. Every noise, every laugh, every cry, every failure, every hope, we're going to send it to them. Not as a weapon, but as proof. The room was silent for a heartbeat. Then one by one, humans nodded, understanding. Not everyone had weapons to fire, but everyone had something to give. And humanity had more than enough. Mara oversaw the transmissions. Music, laughter, images of children running. Storms over oceans. The first steps of astronauts. Everything human, everything flawed, everything alive. These are our imperfections, she said, voice shaking. Every mistake, every scar. All of it. Reed watched the projection, his jaw tight. Good, let them see it. Let them know it. There is no order in this, only life, and they cannot destroy that. The transmissions flowed like rivers of light into the dark void, reaching the alien vessel. Inside Seraphis, the commander's crystalline eyes flickered. The streams of human chaos, laughter, tears, music coursed through its consciousness. Noise, it whispered. Fleeting, primitive, chaotic. And yet, the smaller alien spoke softly. And yet they persist. They endure. They create meaning from nothing. The commander's voice trembled not from fear but from incomprehension. It had never encountered life that mattered to itself, that fought for existence not as a calculation but as a belief, a hope, a dream. Why do they matter? It asked. Because they fight, the smaller alien said simply. Because they refuse to stop, it whispered. And in that moment, the commander realized a truth that shook it to its core. A species that cannot be predicted, that fights not for conquest but for love, for home, for each other, and is a force no algorithm, no weapon, no empire can fully understand. Back on Earth, Reed turned to Mara. They're struggling, he said. Not because we've destroyed them, but because we've made them. Aware of us? Mara asked. Of humanity, Reed replied. Not just as opponents, but as a force no one can erase. Not even them. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, they're watching, and they're realizing something they never expected. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. What happens next? Reed's eyes were hard, unyielding. Next, we remind them why they should never underestimate the human heart. Above, the alien vessel quivered, light flickering in unsteady rhythms. The Seraphis had never known uncertainty, never known chaos, never known emotion, and now, for the first time, it did. Because humanity had reached beyond fear, beyond survival, beyond the cold calculations of conquest, and planted its most dangerous weapon yet. Heart. The void of space was never meant to be quiet. But for the first time in centuries, the hum of the alien vessel Seraphis faltered. Its once perfect rhythm, the pulse of infinite order, stuttered beneath the weight of human defiance, and humanity, small and flawed and fierce, was rising. Commander Elias Reed stood on the observation deck of the newly repaired orbital station. Mara Lynn was beside him, her eyes reflecting the pale blue glow of Earth below. They're changing, Mara whispered. Their systems, they're fluctuating. The readings don't make sense. Reed's voice was steady, cold with resolve. Makes perfect sense to me. They're realizing we're not like anything they've faced before. And once they do, Mara turned to him. Once they do, they'll fear the one thing they cannot calculate. Us. Inside the Seraphis, the alien commander screamed in ways that no human could hear. The streams of chaotic human transmissions, music, laughter, cries, even the erratic patterns of human thought, coursed through the vessel like a living virus. "Contain it," it roared. "Suppress the human noise." The smaller alien, still observing the human madness, shook its crystalline head. "Contain? You cannot. They do not obey laws of order, so their presence cannot be controlled." The commander's light flickered violently. "They are persistent. They endure damage that should have erased them." "Not damage," the smaller alien replied. "Persistence, ingenuity, heart, all things you lack." For the first time, the alien commander considered retreat. Not defeat, that was impossible to fathom, but hesitation, fear, something it had been programmed to avoid, and that hesitation spread like wildfire throughout the vessel's network. Back on Earth, Reed coordinated the final strike, not one of destruction, but of revelation. Humanity's fleet, small and ragged yet unyielding, moved into position. The stingers, the automatons, every improvised craft, a swarm that would have been laughable in any other war, became the embodiment of human unpredictability. Mara's voice crackled over the comm line. "All units ready. Their outer systems are destabilized. They're responding slower and erratically." Reed gritted his teeth. "Then we push. Harder, faster. Every imperfect human creation we have, send it at them. Let them drown in what they cannot understand." The humans struck. Small explosions rippled across the alien hull, but it wasn't the damage that mattered. It was the confusion, the chaos, the perfect systems designed to calculate, to predict, to dominate, faltered under the storm of unpredictability. For every strike, every disruption, the humans adapted. For every failed maneuver, another rose in its place. The swarm became more than its parts, a living, chaotic organism that the alien vessel could not contain. "They persist!" the commander screamed. "Yes," said the smaller alien, "because they fight for what matters, not what is convenient. They are alive." And with that recognition, the Seraphis faltered completely. Its corridors flickered with failing light. Its energy veins convulsed. The once immense ship, a god of steel and thought, trembled like a wounded animal. On board the human flagship, Reed watched as the alien vessel shuddered in space. His chest ached, his body burned from exhaustion, but his spirit soared. "They're breaking?" Mara asked, awe in her voice. Reed smiled grimly. "Not breaking, learning. They've never seen life like this before, and now they're afraid." Above, the alien consciousness struggled against the waves of human transmission. The music, the laughter, the cries, the randomness, the imperfections, the very essence of human existence, shattered its order. It had calculated empires. It had foreseen extinction, but it had never calculated heart. "They endure." "Against all logic?" the commander whispered. "Yes," replied the smaller alien. "And they inspire. Something we cannot destroy." The alien vessel convulsed, light flickering violently. Systems that had been flawless for millennia began to fail, not from weapons, not from strategy, but from the overwhelming weight of life itself. On Earth, people watched the sky with bated breath. The flickering of the alien vessel was visible even to the naked eye. Not a simple glow, but a stuttering heartbeat of light. Children clutched each other. Soldiers stood silently. Entire cities held their breath. Every human, every life had contributed to this moment. Humanity had no perfect plan, no flawless weapon. But they had something infinitely stronger: persistence, courage, and the refusal to surrender. And the universe, vast, cold, and infinite, had finally noticed. Inside the Seraphis, the alien commander trembled before the first time. Its mind, vast and infinite, struggled against the storm of human chaos. "They are not to be underestimated." The smaller alien tilted its head. "No species is if it refuses to die quietly." And for the first time, the Seraphis knew fear, not of destruction, not of defeat, but of the unpredictable, unrelenting spirit of humanity. Above the stars, a species that had once thought itself untouchable faltered. And below, Humanity held its breath, ready to finish what it had begun. The universe held its breath. For millennia, the Seraphis had been a symbol of invincibility, a godlike construct of thought and metal that devoured planets, extinguished species, and left nothing but silence in its wake. But now, in the shadow of Earth's defiance, it faltered, and humanity, and small, flawed, chaotic, brilliant humanity, stood at the edge of the stars, unbowed. Commander Elias Reed floated in the command deck of the orbital station, his hands tight on the controls. His body ached from exhaustion. His vision blurred from lack of sleep, yet his mind burned with clarity. "Final strike ready?" Mara Lynn said beside him, her voice calm but trembling with anticipation. "We've maximized the transmission. Every human song, every laugh, every heartbeat, every story. They felt us." Reed didn't speak. He stared at the view screen. The Seraphis was a trembling shadow of itself. Its once immaculate light flickered in chaos. Its vast hull quivered as though it had finally learned fear. "This is it," Reed whispered. "Time to remind them who we are." On board the alien vessel, the commander's crystalline form pulsed with instability. Every calculation it had made, every prediction had failed against humanity. They survived against all logic. "Yes," murmured the smaller alien. "And they persist. Their hearts beat with something we cannot destroy, something we cannot calculate." The commander's voice was low, almost incredulous. How can a species so fragile, so fleeting, defy extinction?" "Because they fight for meaning," the smaller alien replied. "Not for power, not for conquest, for life itself." And in that realization, the alien commander faltered, a pause that stretched through its systems, a hesitation the universe had never witnessed. Back on Earth, the skies lit with brilliance as every surviving human ship, drone, and signal reached toward the alien vessel in perfect, chaotic unison. Mara Lynn gripped her console. "They're destabilizing. The hull, it's collapsing from within. It's not firepower, it's us." Reed's lips curved into a faint smile. "We didn't conquer them. We reminded them what it means to live." The Seraphis convulsed violently. Systems failed one by one. Its once impenetrable network, designed to anticipate and dominate, crumbled under the sheer unpredictability of humanity, the cacophony of music, laughter, cries, mistakes, courage, and hope. Every fragment of human life, every imperfection, every heartbeat became a weapon no machine could survive. And then, silence. Not the cold, infinite silence of space, but a new kind of quiet. A quiet that trembled with awe, with the recognition of a species that refused to yield. The Seraphis had survived millennia, yet it now floated powerless, an enormous monument to a force it could not comprehend. And humanity had survived, not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because they had something the universe had underestimated: the indomitable spirit of life itself. On Earth, people cheered, wept, embraced. Cities that had burned now glowed with life once more. Soldiers lowered weapons, engineers wept from exhaustion, and children ran beneath the skies, pointing at the stars. Mara turned to Reed. "We did it," she whispered. Reed looked up at the stars, quiet, his jaw set. "Not just us. Every human who ever fought, ever hoped, ever lived. We all did this. They thought they could threaten us. Cute." She smiled, understanding. "And now they know." Above, in the shattered halls of the Seraphis, the alien commander and its companion floated amidst failing light. They observed the humans below, not with anger, but with something new. "They are extraordinary," the commander murmured. "Yes," the smaller alien replied, "and that is why they endure. That is why they are dangerous. That is why they matter." The vessel, immense and godlike, drifted silently, not destroyed by weapons, but transformed by understanding. The humans had survived the impossible, and in doing so had changed the universe's perception of life itself. Back on Earth, Reed stepped outside. The night sky was alive with the faint flickers of the remaining alien light, but Earth itself glowed brighter: cities, oceans, forests, and mountains. A blue planet defiant and whole. Mara joined him, and for a long moment, they simply stared upward. "Do you think they'll come back?" Mara asked. Reed shook his head slowly. "Not soon. Not any time they can predict. They'll remember this, and that gives us time." He looked down at the human cities, at the countless hearts that had fought and survived. We are more than what they thought. More than what anyone thought. He took a deep breath. We are humanity, and the stars, cold and infinite, seemed to shine a little brighter that night, because somewhere out in the dark, the universe whispered, do not underestimate them. The echoes of humanity, chaos, courage, hope, and heart reverberated across the stars, and the galaxy would never forget.